Today we're going to be taking a look at this idea of logarithms. We, a few moments ago, took a look at this problem and that idea that we don't right now really have any property that can undo this, like we do for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And as we start to learn about logarithms, one of the really important foundational idea about logarithms is how do we kind of switch back and forth between an exponential form and a logarithmic form. Just like when you learned your number facts, right? You could learn 1 plus 2 equals 3. And at the same time, you learn 3 minus 2 equals 1, right? And we could kind of change back and forth between those. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. And I'm going to teach you 2 different strategies that you may use in order to help you remember what goes in what places. So this first one that you see written right here, you'll also see this on your note sheet. This kind of represents for us Miss Iverson's favorite way to remember this. And she thinks of it as kind of a little story that one day she met this guy whose name was Abe, right? And after a week, she decided to log him in her phone as Bay. And so it helps her to remember the order of those different parts. So as we're rearranging it, right, what started as the answer will go here next to the logarithm. What started as the base to our exponent goes down at this little base of our logarithm, right? And what started as the exponent will become the answer. And so that's kind of a trick that she remembers. I tend to be a more visual sort of person when I come to memorizing. And so I'm going to show you another strategy that you might want to use. So this one, if we're looking at it here in exponential form and we want to write it as a logarithm, well, logarithm starts with an L. So what I can do is I can go to this and write an L, and it will tell me the order that I should write that, right? Which now it says log, my 2 is going to be first, my 8 is second, and my X is here. And so it kind of helps me remember where those different parts go. Now, likewise, if I start with the logarithm and I want to write it as an exponent, exponent starts with E. So I'm going to make an E over the top of that, right? Which means I have 2 to the X power equals 8. And so I kind of see those visuals. I remember that when I change the direction is where the equal sign goes. And that kind of makes sense for me. But some of you may want to just have something written that you look at to really practice going back and forth between those. So let's look at a couple examples. For example, if I have 3 to the 4th equals 81, and 2 to the 7th equals 128. Notice there's no X's in these problems. I'm not worried about finding solutions to them. What my task is to go from exponential form into logarithmic form. So I need to kind of rearrange the numbers and write it as a log. Again, you may have something that you look at, or you might remember it by one of these. So if I'm looking at it, my strategy, I'll write my L here, which means that I would write this as the log. 3 is my first number, 81 is my second number. I change direction right here, which means an equal sign, 4. And so these two are really equal to each other. They're inverses of each other, but I can go back and forth. Likewise, if I'm rewriting this one, it will be log 2 equals to 7. And so we would read this by saying, let's see if you can still see this here. I'm getting down to the bottom. Log base 2 of 128 is 7. And so that's how we would kind of read that logarithm, right? Log base 2 of 128 is 7. Log base 3 of 81 is 4. Okay, so we have to be able to go from exponents to logarithms. And just like we need to be able to go from exponents to logarithms, we also need to know how to go from logarithms back to exponents. So if we start with a problem like this one, okay, I'm going to do it my strategy, which means I'm going to exponential form. I'm going to draw that e, which means we would write this as 10 to the 4th power equals 1,000. Oh, my zeros went off the board. There we go. And if I'm doing this problem here, I would write 2 to the 4th power equals 16. And so as we start talking about logarithms, it's going to be really important that you can go back and forth between those different forms. Make sure you have some of these strategies in your notes if you're not using that student note sheet, because we will be practicing these here shortly.